Eva Notty was 34 years old. She lived in a spacious, sun-drenched ranch-style house in the quiet, sprawling suburbs of Scottsdale, Arizona. It was a home chosen for its peace, its good schools, and its distance from the relentless glare of the industry that had made her famous. Her annual income was a stable $350,000, a sum earned not from the frantic pace of performing, which she had largely left behind, but from her ownership of a niche production company, wise investments in index funds, and the timeless, if diminished, royalties from her legendary filmography. She was a retired queen of a very specific domain, her name still whispered with a mix of awe and curiosity. But the woman who now spent her days driving her children to soccer practice and volunteering at the local library was a universe away from the painfully self-conscious, intellectually gifted girl she had once been. That girl was named Evelyn, and her story was one of a radical, almost violent, physical transformation in a desperate search for visibility. Evelyn grew up in a sleepy middle-class town in Ohio. She was the archetypal, smart girl, valedictorian of her high school, a state-level debate champion, with a full scholarship to a prestigious university for biochemistry. Her mind was her defining feature, a sharp, analytical instrument that excelled at solving complex problems. But her body felt like a separate, awkward entity. She was tall and lanky, with a flat, boyish figure, narrow hips, and small, almost non-existent breasts. Her face was pretty in an unassuming way, with intelligent green eyes that often hid behind a pair of thick-rimmed glasses, and a cascade of mousy brown hair she kept in a practical ponytail. She felt invisible to the opposite sex, a brain in a jar, admired for her intellect but never desired. While her friends went on dates and to parties, Evelyn buried herself in textbooks, the sting of social exclusion a constant, quiet hum in the background. University was both a sanctuary and a prison. In the lecture halls, she was a star. But in the dorms and at campus events, she was still the wallflower. The feeling of being overlooked, of being seen through, became unbearable. It sparked a rebellion not of the mind, but of the flesh. In her sophomore year, she made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She dropped her pre-med courses and took out a massive student loan, not for tuition, but for plastic surgery. It wasn't a subtle enhancement, it was a complete overhaul. She wanted to be seen, to be undeniable. She underwent a series of procedures that resulted in what would become her trademark, a pair of phenomenally large, perfectly round, and undeniably artificial breasts, a dramatic contrast to her otherwise slender, almost delicate frame. They were a statement, a pair of exclamation points on a sentence that had once been a whisper. The transformation was shocking. The quiet, bookish Evelyn was gone. In her place was a woman who commanded every gaze in the room. The attention was intoxicating and terrifying. She started modeling for local photographers, her unique, exaggerated proportions making her an instant sensation in certain niche circles online. The smart girl was now a bombshell. She discovered the adult film industry during a late-night internet search, a world that not only accepted her new body but celebrated it. It was the ultimate validation of her transformation. She chose the name Eva Notty, a playful, ironic nod to her artificial assets, a name that was both elegant and boldly honest about her brand. She moved to Los Angeles, leaving her old life and her massive debt behind. Her first professional shoot was a surreal experience. The director and crew weren't just professional, they were in awe. Her body was a spectacle, and she knew how to work it. The same analytical mind that once deconstructed chemical compounds was now focused on angles, lighting, and the precise arch of her back to maximize the dramatic effect of her silhouette. The performance was a mental exercise, a complex problem to be solved. When the check for $5,000 was placed in her hand, she felt a cold, clean sense of victory. She had solved the problem of her own invisibility. She had engineered her own desirability. Her rise was meteoric. Eva Notty became an instant icon in the big breast niche of the industry. She was prolific, her name becoming synonymous with a very specific, hyper-voluptuous fantasy. The money was staggering. She paid off her surgical debts within a year. She bought a sports car. She embraced the persona of Eva Notty fully, a confident, sultry, and unapologetic siren. The intellectual Evelyn was packed away, a forgotten blueprint for a project that had been completed. She was making more money than any biochemist ever could, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly, powerfully seen. The first part of her journey was a triumphant act of self-creation. The second would be a painful reckoning with the woman she had buried beneath the silicone. 4 years, Eva Notty lived in the bright, loud epicenter of her own success. She was a workhorse, churning out film after film, her unique look guaranteeing sales. She bought a trendy loft in downtown Los Angeles, a space filled with modern art and designer furniture, a far cry from the dorm rooms and libraries of her past. She traveled the world, attended lavish parties, and enjoyed the material rewards of her notoriety. The persona was airtight. Eva was confident, in control, and reveled in the attention her body garnered. But the duality of her existence began to create hairline fractures in her psyche. The intellectual part of her, the sharp, curious Evelyn, was not dead, she was starving. Conversations on film sets were vapid. The parties felt intellectually barren. She would find herself listening to a director explain a simple concept and her mind, capable of so much more, would scream in frustration. She started having nightmares where she was back in a biochemistry lab, but she was trapped in her Eva Notty body, and her colleagues were pointing and laughing. The very body that had given her visibility now felt like a gilded cage, separating her from the person she truly was inside. The physical toll was also becoming undeniable. The weight of her implants caused chronic back pain. She suffered from headaches and a persistent, low-grade fatigue that no amount of money could cure. She was prescribed painkillers, and she began to rely on them not just for the pain, but to quiet the rising voice of Evelyn, who was growing louder and more critical with each passing year. The confident siren was slowly being eroded by a tired, lonely, and intellectually unfulfilled woman. The breaking point came during a signing at a major industry convention. A young, starstruck fan, a girl who couldn't have been older than 19, approached her table. "You're my idol," the girl gushed. "I'm saving up to get a body just like yours." She said it with such hope, such admiration. Eva looked at her, a young, healthy, natural body, a whole life ahead of her, and felt a wave of nausea so powerful she thought she would vomit. She was not this girl's idol, she was her cautionary tale. The transaction, signing a photo with her manufactured name on her manufactured chest for a girl who wanted to follow in her footsteps, felt like the most profound betrayal of herself. That night, in her sterile loft, surrounded by the trappings of her success, she broke down. She looked in the mirror, truly looked, past the makeup and the famous silhouette, and saw the tired, pained green eyes of Evelyn staring back. She had spent a decade and a fortune building Eva Notty, only to realize she missed Evelyn. She missed using her brain. She missed being loved for her mind, not just desired for her body. The unraveling was slow and painful. She canceled all her upcoming shoots, citing health reasons, which was not a lie. She quietly checked into a rehab facility to get off the painkillers. The silence and therapy were agonizing. She had to confront the self-loathing that had driven her to transform herself, the emptiness that the fame and money had failed to fill. She made the difficult decision to have her breast implants removed, a procedure she paid for herself, a symbolic act of shedding the armor she had worn for so long. The recovery was physical and psychological. She moved to Arizona, seeking anonymity and a slower pace of life. She started a small online business using her real name, Evelyn, offering virtual tutoring in science and math. It was humble work, a fraction of her former income, but the satisfaction was profound. She met a man, a kind, unassuming high school teacher, who fell in love with her for her sharp wit and gentle nature, who knew nothing of Eva Notty. They married, had children, and built a simple, honest life. Now, at 34, Evelyn is at peace. The green eyes that once hid behind glasses, then sparkled with manufactured sultriness, now hold a calm, hard-won wisdom. Her body is softer, smaller, and finally her own. The chronic pain is gone. She still occasionally sees her old image online, a ghost from a previous life, and feels not regret, but a distant pity for the young woman who thought she needed to become someone else to be seen. Her story is a powerful modern fable about the difference between visibility and being truly seen, and the high cost of building an identity on a foundation that isn't your own. She had to become a spectacular fantasy to learn the value of her quiet, wonderful reality.